Convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Bester's girlfriend, Dr Nandipha Magudumana, will remain in custody while her father, Sekeleni, has been released on 10,000 rand bail. The state says it will object bail for Magudumana and her two co-accused, former G4S employee Senohe, Matsoara and Teboho, Lipholo. The case has been postponed to 3rd and 4th of May for bail application. For right now, let's discuss the possible impact of this case on the public's faith in the criminal justice system. We're now joined via Zoom by Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, when we look at, the ground-up investigation timeline, and having listened to, presentations by G4S and the SAPS, as well as the Department of Correctional Services, one can see that authorities did indeed, drag their feet investigating this matter. Just talk to us about your thoughts so far around this case.
Good afternoon, Unati. The biggest thing for all of us as South Africans is that we don't want the state to botch this case. That's a no-no. And I'll tell you why we don't want them to botch it. Is because the confidence level and our confidence in the criminal justice system is at its lowest in this country at the moment. Now, this case has drawn a big public interest and a big public outcry. So the state has got no luxury but to ensure that they restore that trust and faith in the public by demonstrating that it's got its ducks in the row and they can prosecute this case successfully. If you look at what we have thus far, and you look at what had just happened with Dr. Nandipha's father, Sekeleni, if you looked at the charge sheet, it had included murder and arson. So already when you start to look at those small but important details, you begin to ask yourself whether there is a level of confidence, but also just the prosecutors and the state applying its mind on ensuring that they successfully prosecute this case.
And I mean, just going back to that timeline that I was speaking of, one really is concerned when you actually realize that only on the 24th of March, was there a task team set up to apprehend Bester, who escaped in May the previous year. I mean, as you've also said, this case has raised questions about, just the security at our country's prisons. And of course, how systemic, corruption has become in our prisons. You speak about, regaining the public's trust. How do they even begin to do that? Just given the sheer amount of shocking revelations that we've been hearing around this case and the daring escape, since May last year.
So let's start by how they regain the trust of the public. They have a contract with G4S, right? In that contract, it will set out the roles and responsibilities and what constitutes penalties for failure to execute your functions and responsibilities as set out in the contract, right? Now, already this government is fully aware that there have been other escapes from that prison, which G4S has admitted, and there was a penalty levied against them. So once you were advised of the possibility and the potential of another detainee or prisoner leaving the prison or escaping from prison, you should have been on. You could not have had this laissez-faire attitude that they had. They should have been out there looking and ensuring that they get the answers that they need to get. So for them to get our confidence back and the trust deficit that exists between us and the state currently in as far as crime and the criminal justice system in its entirety is concerned, is that demonstrate to us, one, that once you knew these are the steps that you took. I mean, this pontificating and apologizing is not enough. It's for the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services to say, because if you didn't believe it, but you have a contract that gives you rights and you can levy penalties because you are now aware that other escapes have taken place in some of these prisons, especially in Mangaung. Surely, once you are advised, and even if the Inspector General or the Inspector of the Prisons, Judge Edwin Cameron, did not emphatically say, yes, there is an escape, the fact that you had escapes before and you levied a penalty, and I'm going to emphasize this because you knew as a state that it's a possibility that this can happen because it has happened before. So it requires from you as a state more action than what you have done. What they have let us down on is really treated this case as a something that might not be possible when it was demonstrated that it was possible because it has happened before. So we don't accept that they did not believe that Bester could have escaped from prison. No, they knew that it is a possibility because they levied penalties against G4S for a previous escape. And I want South Africans to stay on that because this state was aware that this is something that is possible. So when you are given the information, you don't sit back and call the DCS and say, oh, please check if this is real or not. You bring out the resources and you ensure that the citizens of this country are not made to fend for themselves, because now we know that an extreme escapee who was convicted for rape and murder is out in the open, is out roaming the streets of this country, and the possibility of another crime being committed is very high. You should have known that.
All right, let's talk now about, just the case. Of course, we saw, this morning, Dr. Nandipha's father being released on that 10,000 rands bail, and she obviously and two others being remanded back in court. I mean, we know that it will be weeks, maybe even months before we see the trial into this Thabo Bester escape really get underway, where we'll finally begin to see those responsible answer for their crimes. Just your thoughts, are we likely to see more arrests into this matter? And, fundamentally, will justice be served?
So, I think, as I said earlier before, if the state wants us to have the confidence that we're supposed to have as citizens of this country, they have to do right by us. And doing right by us is to ensure that all the individuals who are implicated in this matter are brought to book. I do not think, and I don't believe, that only the 3 people who are now arrested, who appeared in court today, are the only people who should be facing the might of the law. No, I think there were many others, and the state owes us that to ensure that every single individual, every single entity that was complicit in creating this false escape is held to account. And in fact, if you listen to the Minister of Police at the Portfolio Committee briefing, they kept on saying to us that the investigations are at the advanced stage. And surely, if the investigations are at an advanced stage, we should not have endless delays. In a month or 2 time, we should have a full-fledged trial going on, because we've got every single witness, we've got every statement taken. We know who should be state witnesses. We should proceed. So part of gaining our confidence is to start this trial as soon as possible, because you've told us that the investigation is at advanced stages, and we want to see those investigations bearing fruits for the benefit of the citizens of this country.
Thank you so much for your time, ma'am, this afternoon, and your analysis, of course. Advocate Brenda Madumise-Pajibo just giving us, of course, analysis on the Thabo Bester case.